Each of you should have been given a keychain. Do you have it? Do we have our 8-ball? Yeah, good. I'm glad you have your 8-ball. Okay. Now, there's 2 reasons why I put that 8-ball in your hands. The first is it has my logo on it. Shameless, guys. Definitely shameless. Yeah, anytime I get an opportunity to put propaganda in someone's face, I'm gonna. But the question I really want to ask you is, if you had a great idea, and every one of you in this room should have great ideas, because you're creatives, you'd have to ask this 8-ball, is this idea or is this solution good? Is it gonna work? So you shake it, you ask it, you talk to it. You know, we've all done this. Will she be my girlfriend? Does she love me? Am I gonna win? Turn it over and you get an answer. Now, the 8-ball is comprised, has the guts of a 20-sided die, right? You probably didn't know that. 10 sides on that die are an affirmative or a positive answer. 5 sides are non-committal, and 5 are negative. You'll get answers like certainly, could be true, possibly, ask again later, and no. No. But only 5 opportunities for that. But the thing is that when you ask that and you get an answer, the odds are good. They're really good. 50% of the time, you're going to hear what you want to hear. The other 50%, fuck that, throw it out. And the reason I say that is because you're asking an inanimate object whether or not you're going to succeed. You look at this 8-ball and you ask it, and it's inanimate. That sounds crazy to me, but we do it. Now, kind of along the same lines, you find yourself as creatives confronted with maybe shaking confidence. And you'll say to yourself, well, maybe I should ask somebody, is this idea good? Or is this concept good? Should I go forward with this? And you look at the person next to you, or maybe your colleague, and you say, should I do this? What do you think of my idea? Chances are you're not going to hear what you want to hear. And there's a reason. There's a very good reason. It's because that person has limitations. That person has their own set of thoughts that they take and bring into this idea. And they put it upon the problem, they put it upon the solution, and they get their perspective on it. So realistically, when you ask that 8-ball, you're going to get better results than if you ask the person next to you. And that kind of brings me to my point with this, is why on earth would you look at somebody beside you and say, can I do this? Can I be successful? Can I take my creative idea, my solution, and can I succeed? That's being a pioneer. It's not doing that. Instead, you say, fuck that. You take that idea and you go forward, because I want to tell you something about these ideas and these solutions and these plans that you have. If they are truly unique and you're truly going to move forward, there are no rules. No one can tell you which direction you're going to go, and no one can tell you where you'll succeed. It's up to you. And that kind of brings me to my story. You see, 7 years ago, here in Louisville, I think it was about 7 years ago, there were 4 guys who wanted to start a brewery. We didn't have any money. We had no experience, really no good plans, but we had an idea. We had a great idea. And we were surrounded by a market that was, and forgive me if I offend anyone, no, actually don't, but we're surrounded by a market that in my opinion was very grayscale. I think there were 4 breweries, and they were cooker-cutting breweries that were mimicking a national trend. And they were producing beers that we had all heard of before. And they sadly were all very similar and named similar things and looked very similar. They were pale ale, they were porter, they were brown ale. And they were named pale ale, porter, and brown ale. Who drinks that shit? Do any of you anymore drink that shit? I don't think so. So our idea came. It was, why are we making the same beers that everyone else is making? We want to be something different. We want to succeed. We want a business. We have an idea. We're creatives. We want to get out there. Why are we doing that? So when the market was set and the trend was everybody makes the same thing, everybody gets the same thing, we decided that we would do something different and said, we're not going to make the same thing. Instead, we're going to make different beers every single time. We came out of the gates with our guns blazing and said, you won't see the same beer twice. Now, I can't tell you the number of times that I heard customers and my colleagues and people say, you can't possibly succeed in a market like that. You can't. There's no way that you can offer an inconsistent product to an audience and succeed. They won't come back. Well, I got news for you. Here we are 7 years later. It's really interesting. Actually, I need to move this forward a little bit. Let's go. That was the fuck that part, guys. I'm sorry, I got to talking and didn't do my slide. There we go. That was the fuck that. So we told them to fuck off, essentially, and brought all these different beers to market. The cool thing is, and the really interesting thing is, in doing that and in working in a market like that, we found that we had to have a solution for that particular mindset. And I think this is where creatives need to really flex our muscles and our brains, and that's called innovation. We innovate. Now, innovation can come in the form of a different product. It can come in the form of changing a product. It can come in the form of improving a product, whatever about the product. But it can also come in the form of communication, which I think is the key to success in all of this. We were communicating that we were going to be different. And we did so by creating a categorical system for beers. You see, everyone that was going to breweries at that time was really into, I gotta have my pale ale, I like my hoppy beers. But realistically, what they were saying was, I like my hoppy beers, I don't give a shit about pale ale. So we created categories that would exemplify qualities of beer. And they were very interesting. We have hop, we have session, we have whim, we have dark, and we have smoke. Whim is essentially us doing what we want, and smoke is because we think people here like smoky beer. But what they were was a safe haven for our audience to come in and say, I want to try those beers. I like a hoppy beer, so I'll drink a beer in that category. It was good for our audience, and it's good for us because it gave us an opportunity to broaden our audience's horizons. In addition to that, we were able to collect data and determine what they were actually into so that if we ever did mass produce, we knew what they wanted. We were told you can't do that. You couldn't possibly make money if you didn't give somebody something consistently. Well, we said fuck that. And we did. We gave them quality beer consistently. Again, I think that speaks to the charge ahead. If it's uncharted territory, there are no rules. So don't be bound by those rules. The next place that we found we had to tell people to go to hell, which is the crux of what I'm going to tell you guys, is you got to do a lot of this and a lot of I don't want to hear. You listen, but you got to do that if you're going to move forward into the unknown, because people are afraid. Anyways, the next place that we were kind of in that world was with our beer names. Like I said, the world was full of breweries that were producing beers called pale ale. Or even better, Mike's Pale Ale. Or Louisville Pale Ale. How fucking boring is that? And how do you tell who's got the better pale ale? Or even how do you order? I mean, I'll take the pale. Well, which one? We got Mike's, Louisville, and just regular. Anyways, we decided we'd change things up a little bit and kind of stay true to who we are. Because in a world of creativity and in a world of being unique, you've got to be you to get out there. We're all individuals. And we did that with our names. And the slide kind of shows that. Essentially, these names are some form or fashion of a joke or something that we found funny as a group. And the reason we did that, again, we talk about connecting with our audience. Beer is fun, funny is fun, beer should be funny because we all want to have fun. So we did funny stuff. And we felt like connecting with our audience with humor was the way to go about that. And it worked very well. And we've had a great opportunity to work with an amazing chalk artist in Kendall. She's up here in the front. Don't know what her costume is though. Still haven't figured that out. And then also Robbie Davis, who's inspired us in many ways. He's responsible for a lot of our branding. I'll talk about him a little bit. So we were highly criticized, not only for the pictures that we put up here, but also for a lot of the names. Because to be quite honest with you, they can be offensive. They can be crude, they can make no sense, they can make all the sense, they can be timely, and they can be not timely. But they're ours. That's something we did, and nobody else was doing it. So what are the rules? Well, there ain't no fucking rules. So that's what we did. It was polarizing, and we had a lot of our audience change because of that. But there's a silver lining in everything that you do as you charge forward into the unknown, and that's you have a path and you have a map laid before you. You can look back and say, that was a mistake, I shouldn't do that again. You can also know your audience, because I'm not quite sure the people who don't get my jokes or can't appreciate them, I'm not quite sure I want them around me or buying my stuff. We don't make a lot of stuff. So there's only a fair amount. So there's that. It's all about having fun. Next, and I think probably most relevant at the moment, is the packaging that we chose to do. Kind of staying true to the idea at the very beginning that we're going to make different beers all the time. And I can't count the ways that I heard, you can't possibly do that. There's no way. My colleagues would say, when are you guys going to stop that? When are you going to settle in and make the same things? You can't track it. You can't do inventory. You can't create a system. Well, as always, and I can't say it enough, fuck that. So we decided to take that mantra and run it into our packaging. And if you know about us, and you've seen our packages on the shelves, you know that they're very unique. You should also probably know that there's no way in hell that you have seen all of it. Because we have made so much, so much. And we've done that through, again, innovation. When we've got a problem, we've got to find a solution. We innovate to do that. This will kind of go back to the beginning when I talked about the categories. So I mentioned we had those categories that we brewed beer to that allowed us to brew many different beers in each category. So for instance, smoke. We would make, a smoked beer that would last a week or 3 weeks or whatever, and then produce another one with a different name. Well, in the beginning, we knew that we wanted to package those beers. And we had some forethought, and this is another good part about charging forward. Even though there are no rules, and you should all know there are no rules as you move forward into the unknown, don't go out there unprepared. Don't charge ahead without looking forward. Don't think about what it's going to feel like when you trip and fall. Because I can assure you, for every success, you're going to trip and fall maybe 3 or 4 times. The good news is you don't have to tell anyone about it. They never have to know. Anyways, we had the forethought that we were going to package. So we thought, well, when we get to that place, how are we going to exemplify this concept of producing something different all of the time, of being a trailblazer? How are we going to exemplify that in a world where consistency wins? Because it has. I mean, obviously, when you go to the grocery, you see Budweiser lined up everywhere. Am I allowed to say that even? Bud, whatever. You see it all lined up. You recognize that. In this particular case, we had to be able to do that. We had to be able to compete at that level and have those things out there. So we created these characters. We personified each category to represent the style of beer, the variety of beer. In this case, we've got smoke, malt, dark, whim, hop, and session. All of those represent a quality of beer and ultimately personality traits that we felt represented that beer as well. With that, we felt like, well, we have a character, we have a personality, we have somebody who exists in that world that can change as we change the beers. Again, something that had never been done. Now for the fun, where we get to break all the rules. Each of those characters takes on a different personality when they become a different beer. In this particular case, we have Rico Salvin. If you're in your 30s, you should know who Rico Suave is. He's got his shirt open, he's looking good. Everyone wanted him. Come on. you know it's true. But we worked diligently with Robbie to produce these characters. You know, we talked to him and we got together a process. We told him the beer name, and we created this kind of relevant picture that exemplified what we wanted in the beer. In this particular case, we know who our audience is. We know who drinks beer. There's demographic data thrown at us all the time. So in this particular case, we took hop, because this is an IPA. It's a hoppy beer. And we put him out on that rock that Gerardo's standing on with his shirt open, flowing, his abs showing. As you can see, his abs. But what's really special about Rico is that the beer is produced with a hop varietal from New Zealand. And how do you relate something from New Zealand with the South American flavor of Gerardo? Which, if you didn't know, Gerardo actually lives in Kentucky. Yes, he does. Belafonte, if you know where that is. Anyhow, if you look back here, right here, there's a sheep, and the sheep has a ball gag. Rules, guys. Fuck them. Honestly. Why is the sheep on there? Well, a little known fact, or a fun fact, there are more sheep in New Zealand than there are women. You do the math. Further, there's a kiwi tattooed on my man. Again, New Zealand kiwis, you get it. The reason being the hop varietals derived in New Zealand. We are also able to exemplify some of the flavor qualities of the beer. The flavor qualities are passion fruit and grapes. Obviously, the passion tattooed across his abs. Those are what I call abs, by the way. And then he's smuggling in grapes, which we know what that is as well. So with that idea of categorizing our beers, we were able to create a line of packaging that was consistent and would stand out. And we could show the world that we're still doing what we said we would do, which is throw caution into the wind and constantly produce something different all of the time. And be able to package it. Every colleague said it couldn't be done. This is Bo and Luke, just another example of that. Exemplifying dark and smoke, using some iconic pictures from my childhood, which we know who's drinking beer right now, guys. It's me. So this is what I want to see. And then even further, one of my most favorite, and one of our most famous labels, the brown note. Not only does it speak to the name, or a name that aggravated the hell out of the world, but there's also imagery that's pretty offensive. Again, being told you can't put shit on a label. Not true. We put shit on a label. We also named it about shit. And even the little back on it's really good. It's written on the back. So, you know, this was something that we put together really as another one of those, you said we can't do it, we can do it. This is one of our top selling brands. In addition to that, we've got this one. This is one of my favorites. We create characters. You know, I've always heard you can't be so polar that you can't pick at people or you can't do something like that. You can't be personal when you're creating packaging or you're selling things. Well, guys, this is a stab at somebody. He's not here, but we did it. Again, you said you can't do it. That's a big fuck you to somebody I don't like. Now, I want to move on from that. We continuously move and do different brands and are changing all the time. And I think that that's very important. It's very salient in what we do because it goes back to that one original thing, that one idea in the beginning. Everyone said you can't produce the beers that you want to in that volume or that number and succeed. And we have. This is an example of those. This is probably a fifth of what we do in a year, which is crazy. I would say in the United States, we are at least in the top 5 of all breweries with the number of SKUs that we produce and sell into market. It's phenomenal what we do. So we've got all these beers coming out, we're doing all the time, and we do an incredible lineup of beers. We try to keep things fresh and flowing. We do that by collaborating with other breweries throughout the world that are like-minded. We collaborate with their art teams. We collaborate with creatives in the area. We made a beer with Sam and the Night Visions crew. We are working on some beers with some other artists throughout the world. It's just something that we do as a creative to move forward and to stay at it. I was always told, it's beer. It's just beer. But it's not just beer. For Against the Grain, it's not just beer. It's us. It's our ideas. It's our creativity. It's our experience. We also do that with our packaging. Outside of that, we were told that you couldn't possibly grow a brewery if you don't have enough kegs to put beer into market. Well, guys, kegs are steel. Steel's expensive and it's hard to get a hold of when you're poor and young and don't have any money and all that. So we had to find a way. We did it. We did it with one-way kegs. Nobody had ever heard of that. But we did it. We found a one-way keg. We championed the product and we moved it forward. It's a small caveat, but that's a piece of that. From that time, from the beginning, kind of wrap up the about us on that, we have been very successful in moving beers. I would say in Kentucky, we've gotten everywhere we possibly could that has distribution. But more importantly, and I think relevant to everything else here, we've taken our beers all over the world. Our beers have circumnavigated the globe. Our brand has circumnavigated the globe. We have, my partners and I, we're traveling all the time. We've won numerous awards and gotten accolades. I feel like I'm blowing smoke up my own ass here at this point. But we have. We've been rated in the top 100 breweries in the world. We have been invited to prestigious events and had beer at the top Michelin restaurants. And it's all very, very cool and it's amazing. And I just wanted to say to those people in the beginning that said, you couldn't possibly do it. There's no way. Well, guess what? We did it. We said fuck that and we got it there. So, Why should you care about us? And why should you care about this example? Because 6 or 8 months prior to this, I'm sitting out there listening to the guy up here talking. 6 and 7 years ago, I was standing in a brewery, twiddling my thumbs, working my ass off here and there, looking at magazines, wondering, God, am I ever going to be there? Am I going to be able to do this? It wasn't until I said, fuck you, my idea is better than yours, that I actually did it. That I took my creative ideas, my partners and I decided that we were going to go for it. So this is my call to you. Every person in this room came here for a reason. You come here because you're creative, you're a thinker, you enjoy hearing, you want to learn. You like to rub elbows with people that do that. You've got ideas. This is my call to you. You're going to be confronted with a lack of confidence, whether it's internal or external. It's going to happen. People are going to say to you, you couldn't possibly do that. You're going to look in the mirror and say, I can't. There's no way I can do that. Grab the 8-ball, shake it, ask if you can do it, look at it, and realize how fucking stupid it is that you put your stock in an 8-ball, and remember, it's going to give you the answer that you need to hear more than the person next to you. So get out there and do it. If you can dream it, it's real. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't think anyone in the room is currently questioning the fact that you go against the grain based off that talk today. So thanks so much for dropping a lot of wisdom on us. We're going to enter into a short Q&A, a couple of questions. And so to kind of kick things off, I'm just curious, like, you've obviously pushed boundaries, you've crossed boundaries. What is even next at this point for against the grain?
Well, whatever convention is, we'll transgress it. So when we see that things start to get weird, we'll get normal. I'll get my tattoos removed. I'll start to wear a suit. I'll stop cussing. Ultimately, what it is we're going to stay true to who we are. And it's whatever we want to do in the moment. And as an entrepreneur, a creative, a brewer, an artist, it's all about being true to yourself. And when you're true to yourself, you can be happy. So the next thing is, well, whatever makes us happy. Right now, we're all over the place, so maybe I'll get rich. That's the next thing.
That's awesome. What questions? Right here.
How do you feel like being headquartered in Louisville, being from Louisville, has like inspired and influenced your brand and your, the way you guys function as a business?
That's a great question. So how do we feel about being in Louisville and how it's helped kind of move things along, I guess? Shape who we are. Well, that's an amazing question, actually. Being here in Louisville as a brewer is like having a giant foot on your throat, honestly. Because I don't know about you guys, everything in this city either hinges on or is named after bourbon, whiskey. We're little brother, and we're always kind of hung up on that. The good news is there's no shortage of drinkers. And, right. In addition to that, bourbon gives us an indigenous ingredient or access to that we wouldn't have otherwise, and that's bourbon barrels. They also give us a spotlight, because when the spotlight shined on Louisville for bourbon, we ran right in there and got some of it. So it's helped shape us in that sense. Beyond that, this city is incredibly picky and finicky about what it gets. The people here like good things, so we had to be really good. If we were going to compete, we had to make great beer, had to have great branding, had to have great voice. So I think it's really kind of forced us to raise the bar.
Okay.
Next.
Other questions? A couple more.
Yes, sir.
Have you considered crafting a wine-beer hybrid?
Yes. Have we considered crafting a wine-beer hybrid? Yeah, actually, as of late, I'm a big fan of Prosecco. That's kind of weird, but I'm into it. I don't know, I just tried it, it was really good. So I asked my brewer if we could make a beer called Prosecco. Kind of a wine beer hybrid. So absolutely yes, sounds great. Anyone else? Yes, you in the back. Just come up here. How far will this go, Ben? Okay. Yeah. Hi guys. Hey.
3 words.
Yeah.
In 3 words, can you describe the local beer drinker?
Ooh, that's a good challenge. In 3 words, can I describe the Louisville beer drinker? I would consider myself tall, taller than some people. I'm dark, and I'm handsome. Does that work? Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Here's Ben.